Christine. Good morning and welcome to our roundtable on scholarships success strategies. And this morning, the session will focus on NSERC specifically. But before we begin, we would like to honor the Algonquin nation on whose ancestral lands the university is located. We pay respect to the Algonquin people who are the traditional guardians of this land. We acknowledge their longstanding relationship with this territory, which remains unceded. We pay respect to all Indigenous peoples in this region from all nations across Canada who call Ottawa home. We acknowledge the traditional knowledge keepers, both young and old, and we honor their courageous leaders, past, present, and future. And with that, it is my pleasure to welcome you this morning. I am Marijke Taks, and I'm Associate Vice Provost, Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies. And whether you're applying for a Canada Graduate Scholarship at the master or doctoral level or any other major award, we know that preparing a successful application can feel overwhelming. So today we're joined by two professors and a scholarship recipient who will share strategies, stories, and insights to help you navigate the process with confidence. So today with us, we have Monica Nevins, Professor, Faculty of Science at the University of Ottawa, current NSERC National Review Committee member for Scholarships and Postdoctoral Awards, Mathematical Sciences. Welcome, Monica, and thank you. We have Dr. Paola Flocchini, Professor, Faculty of Engineering, University of Ottawa, former university research chair on intruder agents and the decontamination of communication networks, associate director of the OCICS program, and past member of the National Vanier Scholarship Selection Committee. Welcome very much, Paola, and thank you. And then we have Katelyn Kirby, PhD candidate in Environmental Engineering, Faculty of Engineering, University of Ottawa, and an NSERC Canada Graduate Research recipient, so scholarship recipient. So thank you all for being here. So we will do this event in two parts. First, we will have 45 minutes of discussion with our panelists, followed by 15 minutes of dedicated for your questions. And so some of your questions may be geared to all panelists, or some will be to specifics. That is up to you. But let us start with a discussion question. And the first question is actually for all three panelists. So first question is, what sets a winning application apart from just a good one? Paola, would you like to start?
Okay, so from the point of view of the Vanier Scholarship is a little special, is a bit different from the regular graduate competition for postdoctoral or the doctoral studies. What is really extremely important is the leadership component of the application. So most applications are very good because the competition is high and they are excellent applications. Of course, Monica will give advice, more general advice probably, but in specifically for the Vanier, it's very important to communicate how, the passion for activities where you had a leading role. So leader means many things, and maybe there will be more questions later, but it would be really something, some activities for the community, not just simple volunteering, but organizations of structural activity long term, or something that really is important to pay attention and to think a lot about the part of the proposal where the leadership component has to be described. And it's very, very important for Vanier. Then, of course, there are many other things. Probably Monica will cover them. This is not just the proposal. The proposal usually is well written, and it's. But there are all other components of the applications that have to be. But the leadership is special for Vanier. Not only writing a very nice statement of leadership, but also asking for additional letters, because one is allowed for the Vanier Scholarship apart from the regular reference letter, to ask for additional ones. And that's also very important if you know someone who can write good things about your leadership role in the society, what you have done in the past. Now, I don't know for how long maybe I'll stay short for now. Monica, I can add something and we can go back to this topic later.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So yes, agreed. So when I was thinking about, so it was my first year on the committee last year, and so I'm kind of fresh. I would say the things that really stood out is when I read it, and it was somebody with knowledge and confidence about this research, and that comes from having really talked about the research project with your potential supervisor, or maybe you're already started on that project. Enthusiasm, it comes through in everything that you want to tell me about the project. So it's not to say I'm passionate about research, it is to show me that you're passionate about research. And I also, in a winning application, I really see an awareness of the big picture. I am working on this little part, but it is part of a bigger goal that I'm contributing to. So I like to see those aspects in a good application. Another thing, and I can't overstate it, is you have to address all the criteria. So as an evaluator, I go through and I have to check that you have met something like 10 different criteria. They are published on the website. So help me make that call. Show me that you have the skills necessary to start your project. Make sure that evidence is throughout a proposal. So a good coherent proposal that way really helps sell that this is something that you want to do. And then I will echo the leadership. It's part for me of all those indicators of your passion and your engagement. So that can be all kinds of things that you have done. But you see, like if you're going to be a successful doctoral candidate, you're going to go out there and you're going to be the leader of a research team. I want to see evidence that you're making your way to be that kind of person who's going to be able to eventually produce a project, who's going to gather people together and is going to set in a direction. So the leadership really is kind of important. Tell me what you did when you signed up for the student committee. What did you initiate? Those kinds of things are great. I will say there's some things you can't really do anything about. But I'm still looking for them. So your GPA, your course record, I'm not looking at the number at the bottom. I'm actually looking at the courses you took. And I am thinking about, relative to the university that you were studying at, was this a good range of courses? Did you really actually show me you were committed and you wanted to get all the courses you possibly could? If you only took 4 courses per term and you got an A+ in all of them, I need to know why you only took 4 courses. Do you have what it takes to do like a really heavy duty PhD? So let me know about those kinds of details. I'm more impressed with someone who's had a really full course load. Maybe the marks weren't absolutely the top, but look at all the stuff they learned. I mean, that really sells itself. I'm certainly interested in your prior research and your success and things like that. And then just to say, there's some things you can't really do anything about that I will notice more, like a PhD student who wants to go to the next school because it's the best school in this area versus the student who wants to stay at the same school. That's not great to have you do all 3 of your degrees at the same school. And I do view that negatively. You have to have a really extraordinary justification for that. And that goes even double for the PDF. So I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you very much. Katelyn.
Thank you. So my experience with my application was, I'm not sure how unique this experience is, but in 2022, I applied for the first time for the scholarship, and that year it was a complete rejection, so not waitlisted. And the next year, 2023, obviously 2022, that this is devastating, right? But I tried to take it as more of a learning experience. How can I improve my application for the next year? And so the benefit to everybody on this call is that I've got 2 applications on the same subject written by the same person. One was successful and one was not successful. So I have some data here to compare the 2 applications and say what made one successful and what made one not so successful. And so looking at the different parts of this, so there's lots of different parts that I felt were more successful in the second one. So just to touch on a few of those points, and a lot of these points are going to mirror what Monica was saying about the tone and the confidence. And there were some things that were out of my control. For example, I had another publication that I had submitted over that year, so that obviously would have helped my case. But there was lots of things between the two that were just in the way it was written, in the way it was structured. The second one was a lot stronger than the first one. For example, my first one mostly focused on the technical aspects of the research and what I had done previously. And this new application that was successful balance those technical improvements with the novelty, societal impact, and also credibility of the research. I had more of an enthusiastic tone, more engaging. And so you could really tell in the second application that I felt more confident about the research. I felt more engaged with it. And the structure of it was also improved, where it sort of told a narrative story from my undergraduate to the master's to the PhD, and how all of that contributed to this more forward-looking, impactful, and confident view of my research. So I'll leave it at that, because I think we'll probably get into more of the details between the two non-successful and successful applications and further questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Katelyn. Those were really, really great experiences that you shared there, particularly because you have two concrete examples you can draw from. So thank you for sharing that. So the next question is for the reviewers. And what do reviewers wish applicants understood about the application process? Monica, do you want to start?
Okay, so maybe the first thing is to know that I, as a member of the review committee, receive your application as one PDF file. It's about 20 pages long, and I just read it from the beginning to the end, and I'm trying to be efficient and check off all my criteria and understand what the evidence is. So that means that, for example, your thesis summary of the most recent thesis completed, so that'll be about your master's thesis, or maybe it's about what you're doing right now. That's the first thing I read that you are telling me. So first off, of course, tell me in the first person, I, not the candidate. You know, you're talking to me, the reviewer, and you're talking about yourself, and you're talking about your research. And so understand that I read that first. So it's not helpful if you say the notation in the summary is from my proposal, because your proposal is 4 pages later. So don't do that. Tell me about your master's research. I know that maybe it wasn't a paper, maybe it wasn't super novel, but it was interesting. So what made it interesting? What did you do? What did you learn? What did you get from it? Take a decent amount of that space. No need to fluff or anything like that, but just, like it was a great piece of work. Do tell me about that. And then understand also that I am looking for those criteria, the ones that are on the website. So make it a bit easy for me. When you've got your proposal, put little headings so that I can kind of see what the flow, what the structure is, so that if I want to flip back and say, oh, did they do this? I can find it on your proposal. Good writing is important. So a wall of text is not a pleasant thing for anybody to see. So make your writing a bit more dense when you edit it down. Like, if you have too much stuff, don't make the margins smaller. Cut it down, make it more dense, make it more bang for the word, okay? And a little decent amount of white space so that it's pleasant to look at. That's fine. You're going to convey a lot of information. 2 pages is plenty of time. And what you're really doing in that 2-page proposal is you're balancing some extremes. So it's got to be specific, but it also has to be clear. And so those are kind of the two opposites. And at the same time, you want to show me it's really important, but you also want to show me that what you're doing is feasible. So I'm looking at where it lies on that thing, and it's mainly the 2-page proposal where I'm making that judgment call about your research. And then I'm also interested in just understanding like that narrative, that coherence. So when you get to a section, don't assume that I know something that maybe I should, or that I've heard about that scholarship you won, things like that. So Yeah, and maybe to also understand that as part of the review process, I don't go out and look at the archive or anything like that to, sorry, whatever preprint server there is to see what your papers are about. It's about what you've told me about these things. So it's all within that one document.
Okay, thank you very much, Monica. Paola.
Yeah, these are great advice. I agree on everything Monica said. I will add for the Vanier scholarship, again, specific to the Vanier, the interdisciplinarity of the nature of the scholarship. In the committee, there are 20 people, only one may be in your field. Actually, maybe nobody will be in your field because everybody, this is the 3 agencies. So we have people from medicine, people from biology, people from computer science. I'm in computer science, so I usually am I used to be the only one in the committee in computer science. And computer science is huge. There are many subfields. So when you write your proposal for the Vanier scholarship, you really have to strike a balance between being accessible to every committee member who has no idea of what you are talking about in technical terms, and being specific for the one member who understands. Because you need someone to understand your technical component of the proposal so that this person can champion for you in the committee. And then you need really to use lay language, very clear, and try to explain to someone who doesn't know anything why this is important, why what you are planning to do is significant, what will bring to, as useful, and so on. So that's another balance you have to strike in writing the proposal. Then let me see, you don't leave anything empty, like use all your space. If you don't have anything, you always have something to say. So if I look at the proposal, or I look at the leadership statement, or I look at any other part of the proposal and I only see a little part filled and the rest is empty, that's already a bad sign for the reviewer. So it's important that everything is filled completely. And let me see. Okay, there is for the Vanier, the leadership statement. This is where you have to explain if you had to overcome some obstacles, or you come from a complicated history, maybe for international students, this is more often the case. That's where you explain it. The committee pays attention to all your story. Why you are here now, you are applying for this scholarship. Explain if there are some weak points in the proposal, maybe there's an explanation, maybe there's a motivation. You have to be clear about this without exaggeration, of course, but you have to tell your story, and the committee will read it and will pay attention to it. Maybe there's some more, it will come up later. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to be clear, while the Vanier scholarship is fading out with the new suite of scholarships, everything you said, Paola, is still relevant for any application at the doctoral level also, right? The story, the narrative, we heard it also from Katelyn already, right? The narrative, that common thread through all the applications. Don't leave anything blank. Use that space to explain something or to emphasize something that you feel is important in that story that you want to tell, and that you don't have space in your 2 pagers, which needs to be dense, but not full, right? It needs some white space, make it appealing. So use all the amount of sections that you have to convey that coherent story.
So just to add, then, even if it's just NSERC and it's not the 3 agencies on the interdisciplinarity is not that important, still one reader, one reviewer might not be in your field. One in computer graphics is not a theoretical computer scientist. So also that is important in general, to try to appeal to the non-expert and to the expert.
Yeah, because even in the committees within each agency, not everybody is a specialist in your domain. So the specificity and the clarity is important. Anybody should be able to understand what you're trying to say. And that is definitely true for each agency as well. Absolutely. So since we're talking about the process Monica, and could you talk a little bit about how, I mean, do you review all the files that come into your committee, or how does that work?
Yeah, good point. So we're a committee for each discipline. So say mathematics and statistics, we'll have something like a dozen members. And we receive the postdoctoral fellowships in the fall, and we receive the graduate, the PGSDs in the winter term. And we first get your titles, so the thing that you say that it's about, and we get a spreadsheet with those, and then we rank each of them on like how well do we know that area. So we'll say, oh yeah, I totally know this stuff. I kind of know this stuff, and I really don't know anything about this stuff. And then the NSERC puts together and assigns me as first, second, and third reviewer of a number of files. So I will read a certain percentage of the files that go to the committee. I won't read all of them. And on that one, for the postdoctoral fellowships, I have to prepare a presentation if I'm the first reader. Well, I will summarize what's in your file. So it's very important that your file is clear so that when I'm preparing my summary, I can get it right without digging too much. And then everybody's talking about it and so forth. For the doctoral fellowships, I'm just one of 3 reviewers that's reading it in detail, and everyone has an opportunity to read all the files in some detail. And I may not be in your area, but I am looking for those common threads, and I'm indeed very helpful, very grateful if you've written it for a good general audience and balanced out the specificity with details.
Okay, thank you very much for giving us this peek behind the scenes, right? Okay, so the third question is again for the reviewers or the reviewers' perspectives. What are the biggest mistakes that hurt applications? Paola.
Yeah, one thing that that can hurt the application some things that can are the reference letters. They are sometimes the application is fantastic in all its aspects, and then the reference letters are short, not detailed, very generic. So that is, one can think, is not the fault of the applicant, it's the fault of the people who write the reference letter, but actually it's very important that the applicant talks to them and provides some information, because maybe the professor who's writing the letter does not know everything about you, and also maybe has never written a letter of recommendation. The letter should not be generic, it has to be personal, has to specifically indicate something, not just about your capabilities and your qualities, but also give examples. It should be, it's extremely important, because otherwise, if the reviewer reads a letter that is so generic, it stops reading in the middle and just discard it completely. And at the same time, the letter should not be too short, not just one-liner. This student is fantastic. He was my student and he did a great job. No, it should be. So this is also your task to explain, to first of all, to choose the right persons to write a letter for you. They have to know you well. And then also to indicate a few of your achievements that they may forget. And then you want them to include those achievements in their letter. So that is one thing. And what could hurt? Well, we've already talked about the research proposal and how it has to be written. And I'll stop and let Monica add.
All right, thank you. Oh, I think we have a question coming up where we'll talk about reference letters, so I'll save my comments about that, but I will echo those things. So for the NSERC, maybe the biggest mistakes that I was kind of seeing that are avoidable, one is not listing all the contributions to research. Now, this does take time. In fact, I'd invite you right now, if you have a piece of paper, to while we're talking, to think about what you have done. You've given a talk to a research group. That is a research contribution. You led a reading group. You started to write this paper. It's not finished yet, but it's underway. Those are all things that you're allowed. People are including that. So if you don't include it, you are putting yourself not as competitive as the person who did think about doing this. But the thing is, it's about all the contributions you've done over many years. And it's hard to think of them all if you said yourself, okay, I'm going to write this in the next 3 hours. Like, how are you going to remember your lifetime in 3 hours? Make notes as you go along. Oh, I did that thing once. And the same thing goes for that leadership. So that's one mistake. So I've seen applications that leave it blank. They have made no contributions to research. And it's like, no, you've talked to people. You can find something here. And then I also want to know when you have co-authorships. So you've been on a collaborative project. I want to know, who were those co-authors? Are those other students? Is that someone you found? Did you initiate it? How did it happen? I want to know more. I want to feel the story of what happened with that. Were you just added on as the 5th co-author because your supervisor's nice? Come on, tell me some details. Make it clear. I think I've mentioned before, so I don't want to see someone who wants to stay at the same school. Going to a new school is about opening your knowledge and opening your knowledge base and becoming a more full researcher. So if you're staying in the same place, that better be well justified. If in your proposal, there are those 4 cornerstones, the specificity, the clarity, the feasibility, and the importance, and I don't want you to spend your entire time, like what Katelyn was talking about, like maybe all the time on the technical stuff and then leaving all the rest to my imagination. I want balance in all those things. Also, something that can be worrisome, if I look through your list of references and they're all old or textbooks, I'm not very happy because I'm thinking maybe the subject is dead, actually. And maybe nobody cares about anything to do with this right now. So why should we fund this? And maybe just in general, again, this is something that you can catch after you've finished reading it, or maybe if you have a friend read it over, is don't leave it to me to guess about various things. Like, you won the scholarship. You told me the name of the scholarship and the amount of money. What was it for? I've never heard of this scholarship before. I know what the NSERCs are. I know what an OGS is. That's good. But, something special. Was it for leadership? Tell me so, please. And then maybe you didn't take a full course load. Tell me why. Put this into that narrative. This is what Paola was saying. Tell me there's something weak in your file. Tell me a little bit about why it's there, or just explain. Give me the story. Don't make anything up. Don't exaggerate. But just give me a chance to understand what this is, or I'm going to fill in from my own biases the things that are missing. And then I do want to know about things that you have initiated. So something happened, a project got started. I certainly want to know if you were involved in getting it started, or what role you specifically played on that committee and things like that.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So, I hear, again, tell your story and provide examples. I would add to that when possible, make the link to your project. Like, you did something, you learned something, and then highlight if that is directly connected. So strengthen and emphasize and make it coherent, right? So that become clear that experience really is going to help you with your project, because those things. And in addition, sometimes students are just starting their research, don't have any publications yet, don't have much research experience yet. Then it is these experiences that kind of show their potential. And it comes back to the leadership that Paola talked about, right? That you take initiative. And so those aspects can become really important, because it will also make it more transparent, your enthusiasm for what you're doing, and that you're already engaged. Yeah, very much. Thank you very much for these suggestions. So another question for the reviewers: what sections of applications do applicants typically underestimate? Paola, do you want to start?
Yeah, again, I'll go back, talk again about the research contribution. I don't think they underestimated, but sometimes, well, for example, I'm the reviewer, I read the contributions, and I not only would like to know what is the role when there are multiple authors, like Monica said, but sometimes also specify the quality of the venues where you are publishing, because some venues are obvious, excellent journals, fantastic conference that everybody knows, but often if the reviewer is not in your specific field, they really don't know, and they don't want to go check for that journal to see if it's a top tier journal or so be honest, but especially if you're publishing in good venue, explain a little bit what type of venue it is and how important it is in your field. So that about the research contributions. And then again, about the statement talking about leadership, collaborations are important, especially if you initiated some collaborations, international collaborations. Sometimes students are initiating the collaboration among their supervisor and some other professor somewhere else. So any type of collaboration, international collaboration you have initiated, you should mention it, or even if you participated. Collaboration is important to add. Also, the explaining the delays, I was mentioning it earlier. If there is any important reason for delays or for any that could explain any weaknesses in the proposal, it's really important to add those things in the appropriate section. And yeah, that's it from me, Monica.
So yes, I'll echo with all those things. On the NSERC scholarship, there is a special section called special circumstances. And so that's certainly something that I have seen candidates not use when they could have, to try to explain some extraordinary circumstances in their lives. And, you know, we're reviewers, we're people, we understand what's going on. And the more full and complete the picture, the more we can judge you fairly about this. Maybe another thing that I didn't mention earlier is that, so how do we rank the applications? It really is a strict ranking. I've got a guide from 1 to 6, 6 being the best, 1 the worst, but worst is not that different from the best. We have to put 3 people in bin 1, 3 people in bin 2, 3 people in bin 3. Like it's really, we have to separate you out. So it is about how much you can tell us in your document. So in terms of things that people neglect, I would say that, as I mentioned, the summary of the most previous thesis completed or in progress, that's the first thing. And I feel that I've seen people who just put one tiny paragraph there, and no, you know, give me a decent amount. It doesn't have to fill the page. Please don't fill the page with a wall of text, but give me something there. And then I would also say, parts, the proposal, usually, you know that you have to write the proposal. You're very worried about writing that proposal. That's a very hard thing to write, and you're going to put a lot of effort into that. Hopefully you're going to talk to your supervisor or a potential supervisor and have a bit of back and forth so that you can really refine it and get to that point where you're honestly excited about that proposal and you understand the context and all those other wonderful things. But keep that note on the side about parts 1, 2, and 3, so that when you get to that point, you can write it through and you can show how the things you have done have led you to this point. And you know what? That even works if you're changing areas. You did all your bachelor degree in pure mathematics, and now you're headed into statistics, you know? But it's the stuff you did that you learned, and how is that going to help you? How is that going to give you an edge in this new area you're moving into? That's something you can get across. Also, technical competence. So don't just say, I can code in R. I would love to see, I use these packages, you know, anything that shows me that you're not just saying it for the sake of saying it. Think of when you can give examples like that. And technical competencies that support the kind of research you're going to do are incredibly important. And then in things like you served on a committee, well, what did you do? Like, are you going to be a dynamic researcher who goes out and finds things to do and has some initiative and leads projects to the finish? Do you have a lot of stick-to-itiveness? Are you going to make it through 4 years of PhD? Anything that you can think of, if it rhymes into that narrative, I'm happy to see.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's move to the other side, to the recipients and the applicants' perspective now. So Katelyn, what was your biggest challenge preparing your application, and how did you overcome it?
I think I'm going to talk about 2 different challenges. I know it says biggest as in 1, but I think there's 2 challenges that I had that I think would that most people can relate to in the early stages of their PhD. So the first is one that we're going to talk about more extensively later, is having limited publications or research to put on your application. And so how I overcame that is to focus on showing the momentum and trying to build that narrative arc to future publications. And that I was able to do that by spending a lot of time on building this research narrative really ahead of time, thinking about what is this going to look like in 3 years and 2 years, and keeping that consistent in the application. Also with this, how I overcame it And what was really helpful to me was getting advice from other successful NSERC recipients that had limited research in their applications to figure out what they included. And so that really helped out to see that they focused on their potential for learning and growth based on their previous experiences. So again, we're kind of saying this show, don't tell. So you can say, I have potential for growth, but I think it's more interesting and more impactful if you say, these are my experiences that show that I have this potential for growth. It's more experience-based, but you're showing that it's like showing the data, right? To prove your point that you are able to do more and that your research will be successful. The other challenge that I want to talk about is balancing coursework in the early stages of your research. Trying to do the research in the early stage of your research where I remember in my early stages, there was sort of a lot of pressure for production where you're just trying to figure out your research, really. You're doing the literature review and you're like, what is this actually going to look like? So balancing the proposal writing with that early coursework and the research. So my advice for that and how I overcame it is really simple. Just start ahead of time. Really don't think that this is going to take just a week ahead of time. I would recommend starting, I think for my successful application, I started in early summer. We're in late summer now. So to really build an application, I think it takes time to think about it. And I'll talk more about like building this strong application and how it was helped me in other aspects of my research, not just the proposal, but it helps afterwards to really think about what is the direction I want to go in. Yeah, so those are my two challenges and how I tried to tackle that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So the next question you already partially answered, but maybe you have something to add. So how did you approach writing your research proposal when you had limited publications or research experience? Is there something you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, this is kind of what I was getting into about focus on building and understanding your research trajectory really well, which is why I would recommend starting ahead of time on your proposal. So I would say that if your research trajectory and the impact of your research which is also really important, your societal impact, if it isn't clear to you, then it won't be clear to the reviewers. So you have to be confident in your own research to be able to exude that confidence in your writing. And that is what I think we've established that is something that the reviewers are looking for, is that confident tone that you're engaged in your research. The other thing is that, like I mentioned before, the benefits of doing this and understanding building this research trajectory goes beyond writing just the proposal. So I found it really helpful. I used the research plan for my thesis proposal, and I used it in certain manuscripts. So if you spend the time in the early stages, it helps you later on. At least that's been my experience. And I found it to really help me build my confidence in my research, like looking at the first application versus the second application. There was a year of time in between the two, obviously. So that helped build confidence, and the research kind of expanded and grew. But I think that because I knew where I was going, I was confident in that direction, and that came across in the proposal.
Mm-hmm. And probably also because you had, a first-time unsuccessful proposal, you already had a base to start from, right? You didn't start from scratch. You already had a base, and now can build on that and make it more coherent, and particularly look at the coherence between the sections. So again, it demonstrates the importance of time. It needs time, right? to grow and mature and build. And again, the tip of working on it every day a little bit is really important, and don't leave it till the last 3 days, because it's gonna miss that coherence. And particularly also if you want to ask for help from peers, mentors, or your supervisor, you need to include enough time, sufficient time, for the other people to give you that feedback. Is it clear? Is it simple enough? Is it specific enough? You know, those things, I think time is of the essence, and coherence, to create the coherence that is needed. Yeah.
Exactly. And can I add one more thing that I just thought of to this? So we're talking about limited publications and research experience. I would also add, my recommendation would be to say yes to whatever, even though it doesn't, we were talking earlier about UO GradFlex and creating a 1-minute presentation for your research. I'm not sure if that helped my application, but that's something that I did. There was also sort of an offshoot of my original research project that turned into something amazing, and that was because I just said yes to something. So you might not be saying yes to write this manuscript, you know, the traditional research things, but maybe it's try writing this blog or something like that. So just trying different avenues of not maybe like traditional research, but try other things.
Yeah, so what we're talking knowledge transfer, then different means of knowledge transfer, you know, get the research across, you know, into society in a variety of means. So thank you very much for that. So we get to the reference letters, and I know we've already heard from the reference letter and how important they were, and particularly in the Vanier competition, but they are also important to some extent in the doctoral and master's applications. So what makes a reference truly effective, and how should students guide their referees? And again, this is a question for all 3 panelists.
All right, I'll dive in.
Okay,
So in the NSERC, the reference letters are at the very end of that 20 pages that I receive, and they are either going to negate things that you have said, which is quite bad for you, or they will support it. They're not as important as for the Vanier, because it's not so much about your personality, it is about the science. I will say the important thing, pick someone who knows you and who knows your research area. So somebody mentioned in the chat about an industry contact. Wonderful idea if they know you and they know about the research and its importance. That could be a very strong letter, but very, very important for that industry person. Give them the criteria and explain as much as you can that they really have to try to address those criteria. And those are available on the NSERC website. So that's how you could best support someone who's coming from outside of academia. Within academia, we're kind of used to what we want to see in a reference letter, but that could be how you could guide that referee. If you're taking a referee who's from Europe instead of from North America, we're much more effusive in our letters in North America than they are in Europe. And so maybe that's just something you could comment to your letter writer, that either if they can't be effusive, that they just state at the top that this is the style of letters that they write in Europe, just something so that we don't take it as a negative.
Okay, thank you. Paola, is there anything you'd like to add to the letters of reference?
Well, maybe I'll just add, as Monica said, letters from an industrial partner or someone are good, but one academic letter would be important. So of those letters, of those 2, one academic is crucial, because otherwise the referee thinks, oh, something is wrong here. There are no academic letters in here. And I think no, I don't have anything else to add. Someone who knows you, and it's not forbidden to give some information to the person who's writing the letter. Obviously, you're not writing it yourself, but if you provide some information, it's perfectly fine, and it's helping the person who has to write a letter. So it's usually taken well, if you do it in an appropriate way.
Yeah, thank you very much. Katelyn, what is your advice in this regard?
I don't know if I have much advice for what makes a reference letter truly effective, because I didn't see that side of it. But I think for I was really fortunate to have two supervisors that are very familiar with the process, knew that I would be submitting this application. And so I think for those of us that maybe don't have professors, supervisors that are really familiar with the process, just give them a heads up much ahead of time. I would even recommend trying to get them the first draft few weeks, maybe even a month ahead of time. They'd really appreciate that. They're very busy people. And maybe they'd write a really good letter if you give it to them ahead of time, rather than the week before. So that would be my point with that.
Yeah, a very interesting point there, sharing a draft, which again means that you needed to start ahead of time. Otherwise, you cannot share a draft and you don't give referees sufficient time to actually, comment on what you are trying to accomplish. So again, very good point. And again, sharing information with the referees can also help. So if you need to pick two, and I totally agree, one of them should at least be an academic, but maybe you can try or ask some referees to emphasize a few things that they are better at, and then some other points that they are better at. So that, again, you build it into the narrative so that the emphasis comes out there and another emphasis comes out there. So those are things that you can really target, and you can help your referees explaining that in the context of your project, you're asking this to do that, and you would invite this referee to maybe emphasize these aspects a bit more. So those are things that, for the sake of time, I'm not going to ask that last question that we had prepared, because I want to leave sufficient time for questions. But of course, I already want to thank the panelists for your advice and sharing your advice and experience. But we now move on to the question period, and we'll take questions verbally or through the chat. Just raise your hand if you would like to ask a question, or write it in the chat. And my colleague Christine will facilitate the question period. So here we go. Questions?
Thank you. Yeah, we have few questions in the chat. I'm going to start with Darren's question. Is it okay if the collaborations that were initiated not be directly related to the current proposal? Moreover, what if the collaboration is more health related? I ask this because I have two streams of research. One is more theoretical, with another one being more applied to healthcare.
All right, I assume that's an NSERC kind of question, and you're right, we are a little bit cautious. We want your research to be in science and not in healthcare, and so do keep that, but I think you're aware of that. But it is the fact that you were engaged in a collaboration, that you were applying that beautiful research you were doing in the real world. That is just a wonderful plus.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Angeline. How much is the actual research weighted in the grant application?
For the PDFs, it's different than for the postdoctoral fellowship. Postdoctoral fellowships are different than the PhDs. For PhDs, there's I think 30% for your academics, and then 70% for your research. And then it's a different weighting. I'm sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it is available on the website, and we do apply it strictly.
Yes, thank you. How is industrial research experience perceived in the application? I am curious because I spent 4 years working after my undergraduate degree and prior to beginning my graduate program. I would like to leverage that experience in my application as much as possible, but I'm not sure how, as most of the research is proprietary and there is no publication information on it.
Okay, do make it clear. Sorry, I'm just going to chime in. Do make it clear about the proprietary nature and so forth, and tell us as much as you can so we get a feeling of what's going on. Definitely research, industrial experience could be viewed very positively. Like, this is just, if this is part of the narrative, I'm back at school because I'm going to solve the world's problems and I actually know what the world's problems are. Fantastic. If you're saying, actually, I worked in industry and I hated my boss, so I decided to come back to school, that really sucks. So you see that somewhere between those two extremes, figure out that the narrative comes out the way you want. But definitely, I saw some really excellent applications for people returning to school, and they just had a lot of maturity that really brought that confidence across. It was great.
And perhaps it could actually strengthen the application to have such experience.
And I assume the section on special circumstances could, that's where you could emphasize that after school you decided to go whatever. So there is that you kind of explain the reason for the steps you're taking or you have taken in the past and you're taking now. And that can be explained right there. Okay.
Thank you. We already answered that question, but I just want to add something. Can the reference letters come from industry leaders or just academics? We did answer, but I always want to mention, always refer to the instruction. Just to make sure, go back, because we talk about the agency, but if you're applying to another scholarship, always go back to the guideline of the scholarship. The next question from Darren, how does the review committee rank the numbers of publications? Is it like of a point system? For example, if you have 3 publications, you will receive 2 points, with more publication awarding you more. Is there a cap for points if such a system exists?
Again, I'll dive in there and say I absolutely do not count publications because I have to compare applicants who are applying straight out of the master's, maybe even straight out of the bachelor's, with somebody who's got 2 years of PhD experience. So it would be totally unfair to just count publications and pretend that they were the same kind of person. I also have applicants in a very pure area or a very applied area, and I expect different numbers of applications. So it really is part of, I'm saying, relative to this field, relative to what I expect of other applicants, what's going on here. And it's also your narrative. You're working on a big heavy duty project and it hasn't led to a publication yet. You know, I understand that from what you've told me, and that's fine. So don't stress over the number of publications.
Yeah, and I'll add, explain. As I mentioned earlier, say what the venue is. Maybe you have just 1 publication, but it's really a top tier venue. Say that and say, this is 1 publication, but it's worth 15, and the referee will understand. I mean, you don't say that, but maybe, you know, just say something about your number, especially if it's low, motivated.
Yeah. And again, the expectations for masters and doctoral students will be different, and that is all taken into perspective, and as is the domain, the field that you're working in. So it's all proportionate, right? That's why we call it peer review, right? Other questions?
Yes. How important is preliminary data, and how should it look like?
How important is preliminary data? So if you
What do you mean by preliminary data?
That you have already collected some data, I assume.
For the research proposal?
I guess that's the question.
Oh yeah, but then it's important. Yeah, that shows the background. So when one writes a proposal and has already some data and some results, that's good. It's good because it shows that the background is there, and then starting from the data collected, it's probably easier to explain what you plan to do if you already have some preliminary results. So I would say it's good.
But don't give me a table of data. Oh my God, don't do that.
Just mention you have some.
Yes.
But also you should not have done everything already. You know, this is a proposal for something you are planning to do. So it's okay, a little bit of preliminary information, preliminary data, but don't show that you have already done everything.
That's right. And yeah, it's your feasibility that you're.
Awesome, thank you. We touched on that question, but I'm just going to ask it just to make sure. I have left school for about 10 years, but I have strong leadership and industry experience that has brought me back to research work. Can this also be translated to research potential? I don't have publication, but I have strong international industry collaboration. Is this applicable?
I'm going to say yes. So certainly it can be applicable. Depends, of course, on your field. Maybe the thing that I would be worried about reading your file is, are you capable of entering back into a school environment where you have to write exams and things like that? So maybe your letters of reference can help with that, or maybe something to show that you're ready to engage back in a fully academic thing, having been away for so long. How is it that you're going to overcome those kinds of hurdles?
Awesome. Thank you. This question, is this scholarship open to international student? I can answer. Vanier scholarship was offered for the last year, last year. The agency have launched a new program, which now for PhD include international students that are registered at a Canadian institution. So yes, you can apply for the PhD doctoral scholarship if you're an international student. Unfortunately, at the master level, it's still you're not admissible, but for the PhD this year. The question for Katelyn, did you reach out to past scholarship recipient? If so, how did you go about reaching out to them, finding their contact information and so on?
Yes, I did reach out to them. How I found their contact info, they were in my my research group. So they had the same academic supervisors as me. So that's how I was acquainted with these individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And did you see their applications or did they read your application?
They gave me feedback on my application, and then they didn't give me their application, but they gave me sort of an outline of the application. I mentioned this, and this is sort of how I had it structured. So that's the information that they provided me with.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
More questions,
Yes,
Christine?
we do. We still have few more. Do the reviewers mention the reason for the rejection of the application? No, and it's not something that the agency give either normally, so unfortunately, so. So I'm not sure. I think we touched on the reference from the industry. Regarding reference letter, is it a red flag if one of the letter is not from our respective PI? I'm not sure. What's the PID? Is it the
That would be the
supervisor?
supervisor, the
Okay.
principal investigator, the
Right,
supervisor, I assume.
I'm expecting if you're at the same school as supervisor, you already make, so you can apply to a school and in the doctoral scholarship, maybe you're going to choose some people and you haven't necessarily picked one yet. I think that's true. It's certainly true of the PDF. And then I understand that that person doesn't even know you yet. So why would they give you a letter? And certainly I wouldn't recommend reaching out to someone you don't know to write the letter about the research you're going to do and how great you're going to be. They have nothing that they can say. So I think that's a no. It's about the people who know you that are important.
Awesome. There's a question regarding the U Ottawa has stated on his website that the grants are being combined into the Canada Graduate Research Scholarship. Are we supposed to apply to one of NSERC and one for CIHR separately or through a general CI? So there's only one, you can apply to only one agency. So you have to choose if you're going to apply to NSERC or CIHR. It's just because they used to have the agency and the Canada Graduate Scholarship, the 40,000, and I think it could be 21,000. Now it's all merged in one program. That's $40,000, but you still can apply to only one agency. So you have to decide if you will apply to NSERC and CIHR. You can look on the application or on the website. There's a link that can guide you how to choose the right agency. That's information is available on the agency website. Can we explain gaps in work under special circumstances? So yes, the answer
Yeah,
is
absolutely. Yeah, that's it's a special circumstance. So definitely.
awesome. What should be the typical structure of the research proposal? I mean, the possible subheading that should be considered in order to keep the 2 pages requirement and also keep the proposal comprehensive.
I think they probably give you the headings in the actual descriptions and instructions for the proposal. They'll tell you that we need to see the following sections, and you can use those as titles.
Yeah.
Katelyn, do you have something there to say, perhaps? How did you structure your proposal?
Yeah, I'm just looking at it now. So start off with background, objectives, methodology, expected outcomes, and novelty. That's it.
So here you have it. Thank you.
Thank you. With regards to the proposal, what kind of weight should we give to the background information versus work that we have already done versus future directions?
Yeah, that can be challenging sometimes because, of course, you want to say it depends also on the type of proposal. Sometimes you have to explain the background to be able to understand the future work. Sometimes it's easier to just say a paragraph of what you have done if there is enough, so I wouldn't spend too much time on the background, but enough that is clear that you know what you're talking about and you already have knowledge in the field. So it could be short, it could be just a paragraph, or it could be a little longer. It depends on the area, or it depends on the proposal. And I would use the rest of the proposal more for the future work and the motivation, and the the outcome that you are expecting to achieve.
Kind of demonstrate you have the skills and competencies already built up there to execute your project.
And maybe I'll just chime in. Don't feel locked into the subheadings and the order in which they're given. Sometimes your area requires you to say something before something else to be logical and coherent. That's why it's 2 free-form pages. Use that to your advantage.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, that's very important.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Narrative, coherence, it all needs to make sense for you, for
Yeah.
your project.
How important is GPA? Would it really make a difference, or will really depends on the course performance in the area of interest and acquire skills?
I'll chime in there in saying, so we definitely see that. I don't actually look at the number for the GPA. I'm not interested in calculating how much you got in an English course in first year. I absolutely do not care. If I see an F, I'll look and see which course was that in, that kind of thing. And I'm mostly interested in the courses that are relevant. What did you take and how did you do in the courses that are relevant to the thing you've picked? If you have always done very poorly in graph theory, why are you picking graph theory for your PhD is my question.
And also, if there are many Fs or several low grades, explain why. It might not matter, but you have to explain why, and there could be a good reason.
Awesome, thank you. The question regarding the recording of the roundtable, yes, all the roundtable are recorded, and we are planning to make them available to students. So unless there's major technical problem with the recording, we will not. But this is something we plan and we put on the website as soon as it's ready. And just to go back to my question, there's only one application for because there were 2 scholarships and you were considered in the past you were one application and you were considered for both scholarship, the one from the agency and the Canada Graduate Scholarship. They're consolidated this year. There's only one application. Like I was mentioning, you can only apply to one agency. You can apply for CIHR or NSERC, or you have to choose which agency you will apply for the scholarship. So, but there's only one application, and the internal deadline, if you're a student registered at the University of Ottawa in the last calendar year or academic year, like you have to double check. But if you were registered at the University of Ottawa in the last year, you will apply to our to the University of Ottawa, and the internal deadline is September the 24th.
Yeah.
Do you have any specific suggestion for international applicant, given that the scholarship is expected to be highly competitive with only 15% of award going to them? I don't know.
I don't think the criteria are any different. I mean, they really can take advantage of anything that was shared here.
Mhm.
Narrative, make sure all parts of the applications are relevant, are coherent. They're not going to make a difference.
Yeah, maybe there were special circumstances or obstacles that they had to overcome to come here, and just tell the story, like we said earlier, because there could be, yeah.
And maybe I'll chime in, if you are coming from another country and a different tradition of academia or of research, try to explain that to the North American audience. I realize that's very tricky as an international student to know what's different with the Canadian system. So talk to your peers, and just so that you can explain anything that somebody's going to say, well, that's weird.
Awesome. Thank you. It's already 12:03, and as many questions we want, unfortunately, be able to answer all of them. If we are able to connect to the student that were in the ask question in the chat, we try to get back to you. But Marika, I just give you back for the ending word.
Yeah. Just for those, we will look at the questions. We will see if there are common themes that we need to provide more information on. We definitely will keep that in mind, but we're going to conclude our event here. Thank you very, very much to the panelists for giving your time, sharing your experiences and your suggestions with the candidates. And for the candidates, we hope you enjoyed this roundtable and it will help you in your scholarship applications. It's the first year we do this. We will follow up with a very, very brief evaluation just to check if this is something that is relevant, whether we can improve this format one way or the other. But once again, thank you all and good luck with the scholarship applications. Have a great day. Thank you.